Welcome to this product show. Sean Faluji from Nigeria will share his thoughts, his experience in how do we build insights from customers that don't really use your product. A lot of us, we measure metrics, usages on our software as a service platforms, but how do we really understand customers and build insights from customers that might not use your product or have issues in using your product? Maybe it's because of poor internet connections, maybe it's because of accessibility, other accessibility reasons. How do we bring in that knowledge into the product management space? That is what Sean Faluji will share with you. The screen is yours, Sean.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the show. In today's episode, I'll be talking about designing products for people who do not use them. Every day, we roll out very beautiful and amazing solutions, however, people do not use them. Certain people do not use them. So, who are the users that might likely not be using your product? I think that's a very important question that we need to ask ourselves. And before I answer the question, right, I think I need to talk about certain facts to you. So, the first fact that I would likely be sharing with you is the fact that you should get agbada. It's a very popular attire we put on in Nigeria, and I think if you ever visit Nigeria, you should probably get one. Anyways, I was just joking. So, let me get into the real facts I wanted to talk about. So, one of the first and major facts I want to talk about is the fact that about 15% of the world population do not have access to the internet. This is a very large population, and when we are building technology solutions, I believe we can take about these users and try to see how we can include this demography of users into whatever software solution we're building. Among the users that have access to the internet, close to 40% still live in areas with very poor internet connection. This is also a very large number and a very large demographic. About 57 million Americans are said to have special accessibility needs. This range from hearing impediment to challenge with vision that some users might be experiencing, and other accessibility needs that certain users might be having. We need to have these particular users at the back of our mind when we're definitely building technology solution. That is another fact that I think you should know. About 20% of internet users have difficulty in navigating their way through the internet, applications, and websites. That's a very large number, and this speaks to the fact that there's something that we are probably not doing right when we ship our technology product, as a very large population of some of the users we are trying to target still have a problem in using our application. So back to the question, who are these users? I've identified some categories or characteristics of users that I think might not necessarily be using our product. So the first category of users that I think might not be using our product will be users that have special needs. So let's say you roll out a product that is very, very heavy on colors. Users that have certain sight or vision impediment might find it very difficult to use such applications, as they might not necessarily be able to identify colors. So you want to have at the back of your mind that there are certain users that might have accessibility needs, and these users might not adopt your product if they do not find it useful or intuitive enough. So this is a very, very large set of users that you want to have at the back of your mind. Other users that might not necessarily adopt your product might be users that live in areas with very, very poor or no internet connection at all, and they might drop off from your product if your product requires, or if your product relies heavily on having very, very high internet connectivity. We also have users that might not adopt your product because of their differences in cultural orientation or sexual or religious orientation. People might not adopt your product if some of the features you built into the product challenges their way of life, or their way of thinking or their way of doing things, right? So when you're launching out products, you want to consider the orientations that people might have. Then also think about your grandma who finds it very difficult to upload a WhatsApp status. So we have a demography of users that might not necessarily want to adopt your product because they find it very, very difficult to use or very, very difficult to navigate through your application. So these are some of the categories or characteristics of users that I think might not adopt your product. So next up, I want to walk you through a very quick case study of pain points of users that are living in areas of poor internet connectivity and how you want to navigate that. So I'll be using Lagos as a case study. In Lagos, Uber and Bolt are very, very popular ride hailing system that a lot of people use for commuting, either to work or to just go and have some fun. However, there's an adoption problem that I think Uber and Bolt is yet to solve in this part of the world, and that's the case that I want to talk about. So consider moving from, let's say, a point A to a point B in Lagos. The way Bolt or Uber works is that you have to book your ride at point A, and when you get to point B, you end the ride. Then the application calculates what would be the cost of the journey, and then the customer will have to pay for that particular journey either to the driver or directly to Uber or Bolt. Now imagine a case where at point A you have very, very good internet connectivity, but when you get to a point B, the internet connectivity is very terrible. What then happens is that the customer will have to drop off from the vehicle, and the driver will move to a location with a very, very good internet before ending the trip. However, there's a big problem here. At the point where the driver ends the trip to where they get good internet, Uber or Bolt will usually calculate an extra cost. So a journey that should ideally take, let's say, $10 might end up taking $13 or $14 because the driver might have to drive to a point with a very, very good internet connection before ending the trip. Now, this particular problem I just stated is the reason why certain people might not want to use some of these technology products. Is also the reason why certain people have very terrible customer experience while using Uber or Bolt. Now, as a product manager working for either Bolt or working for either Uber, there's a particular feature I think I would build. I'll probably want to build an offline map such that drivers can end the trip and calculate the cost of the trip, irrespective of either they have very, very good internet connection or if they have terrible internet connection. So, thinking about the dynamics of challenges that users might be facing could help in informing what type of feature you build into your application. And this is just one of such case study I just talked about here. So it's important that you have at the back of your mind the kind of challenges that your user demographic might be facing when you are building certain product, as the challenges that they face would either mean they adopt or leave your products. So why should you care about these users that I just talked about, the users that might not use your product? It will put a smile on my face if you build features for this product, and it's also going to put a smile on the face of my friend. There's untapped revenue for the user demography that might not necessarily be adopting your product, and more revenue is always good for business, right? So you don't want to let any revenue go. That's one of the reasons why I think you should care about the demography of users that might not necessarily be using your product. Another reason you should care about them is that it's going to increase the adoption rate of your product, right? Solving the pain points of these users will increase the adoption rate of your product. Product inclusion is also a big deal. There are certain parts of the world that you could get fined or you could get a lawsuit if your product is not catering to the needs of certain users. So inclusion is a big deal in the 21st century, and your product should be as inclusive as much as possible. Um, using opportunity to make the lives of millions of people better is also another reason why I think you should care about these users. Right. So, how do you cater to the needs of these users? This is a very, very important question. Now, I'll be answering this question based on my experience. So, one of the ways you can cater to the needs of these users is by actually spending time with these users, right? Spending time with these users will make you understand what type of problems they are facing. If possible, I would say you should travel to the location of where this user travel to where these users are probably located, right? Try to understand the problems they might be facing. Don't just ask them for the features that they want to build. Try to understand what problem they might be facing. Try to understand the why. You want to know why they are not using your product. You want to know why they are facing certain challenges. You want to know why they are frustrated. Now, I do understand that as a product manager, you might not necessarily be able to travel to all the locations where your product needs to be used. What you could do in this case is you could probably hire local people within the community or probably hire user researchers. Another thing you could do is to make sure that when building your team is as diverse as much as possible, meaning you are hiring people from different locations, as these different people can bring in unique perspectives and unique ideas to the table when you are building your product. So, diverse teams like Microsoft actually do this very well, as they can actually cater to the needs of both global and local users at different scale, right? So you want to make sure you are doing this. It's going to help you solve global customer problems. Building user personas is also another way of catering to solving the problem of users that might not be adopting your product. Personas help you identify the unique qualities of users, and identification of the unique qualities of users helps you know what to build for the different segmentations or demographics of these your users. Carrying out A/B tests is also very, very important. A/B test lets you know what to do. A/B test lets you know what works. But when building A/B tests, you want to make sure that you follow some of the best practices, right? You want to make sure that you are building the right target groups, you are building the right segmentation, you are building the right demography of these users, and not just carrying out some random tech acts. And when carrying out A/B tests, I also want to mention the fact that you should focus on functionalities and not just user interface. I'm going to give you an example of something that happened to me. I was going to launch a product for a rural community in Nigeria, and when we carried out our A/B test, myself and my team, we discovered that some of the best practices that would work in urban centers were not necessarily working in rural areas. Now we're able to come to this conclusion because we carried out A/B tests and we're able to identify what worked for some of these particular users in rural areas, and that just allowed us know what we needed to build into our application. And of course, we had to build a separate version for these users in rural communities. So A/B tests could prove very, very important to catering to the needs of these users. However, you want to follow some of the best practices. Lastly, I will say let the data make the decisions for you, right? Assumptions could be very costly. Watch your numbers. Watch the numbers of people that are not adopting your product. Check out their location, check out their segmentations. Let the data direct you, right? The data is like a compass to guide you to the right direction. So make sure that anything you do is based on data and not just based on your assumption or what you think or probably what your CEO told you, right? So let the data always guide whatever decisions you are making. All right, so that's it for today. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, you can feel free to reach out to me on any of the social media platform. I'm going to be displaying the link to my website shortly, so you can visit my website, and from my website you can get the link to any of my social media platforms. You can reach out to me and I'll be glad to respond to whatever questions that you might have. So
So
thank you
thank you
very
very much,
much.
Sean, for sharing your thoughts and your product wisdom. And you know what I bring with me from this is very much the thinking around testing. Sean mentioned A/B testing, but I think in general that when we create the tests, and what he mentioned is that we need to focus on functions and the basics kind of of product management. Will people really be able to use this product? It's not always about the design, and I think a lot of discussions right now are about the design of things and how does it look, how does it feel. That's important, but also the pure, we need to design tests that really checks on the functionality of the product. Will it solve the problem that we're aiming for? I think that's a good one. And then also Joshua here mentioned that around the assumptions, that when we create products for people who do not really care for products or not using the product yet, if we're designing for these, we need to make a lot of assumptions. And we need to assume things, but we can create intelligent assumptions. It's not just about creating them and having an assumption. We need to create them, be aware of them, and then also challenge the assumptions. I think those are some thoughts that I bring with me after listening to Seun Faluji from Nigeria on creating products for people who are not using them. Thank you very much for listening to this show, and please find some more that you find relevant for your challenges and your context that you are in right now. Cheers.
Thank you for watching this recording from the ProductBeats Show. Remember to become a member in our Competence Center at productbeats.heartland.com to get weekly invites. All the links will be available in the description box below. You can also follow us at Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Just search ProductBeats. Now, enjoy the rest of your product week, and we hope to see you in the future.